Welcome to another journey into the world of philosophy. Today we explore the thought of one of the most influential philosophers of modern age, David Hume. Born in 18th century Scotland, Hume became one of the greatest representatives of Empiricism. Empiricism, the philosophical view that all knowledge ultimately comes from experience. While earlier empiricists such as John Locke and George Berkeley had already emphasized experience, Hume carried empiricism to its most radical conclusion. He questioned many assumptions that philosophers had long accepted as certain. Can we truly know the external world? Can reason prove causation? Does a permanent self really exist? Can metaphysics provide genuine knowledge? Hume's philosophy shocked the foundation of traditional philosophy. His skepticism challenged rationalism, theology, and metaphysical speculation. Yet, at the same time, he offered a powerful analysis of human nature, emotion, habit, and belief. His philosophy was not merely destructive. Hume wanted to understand how the human mind actually works. Instead of constructing grand metaphysical system, he examined experience itself. He believed philosophy should be based on observation of human life, just like science is based on observation of nature. Impression and ideas. Hume began philosophy with experience. According to him, everything present in the human mind is called a perception. These perceptions are divided into two categories: impression and ideas. Perception is a product of impression and ideas. Impressions are vivid, forceful, and lively experience. These include sensation, emotion, desire, pain, pleasure, and immediate feeling. For example, seeing a bright red rose, feeling anger, hearing thunder, or experiencing hunger are all impression. Ideas, on the other hand, are faint copies of impression. When we remember the rose later, imagine the thunder, or think about hunger without actually experiencing it, we possess ideas. According to Hume, ideas are weaker, reflection of original impression. The mind cannot create completely new ideas, independently or experience. Every simple ideas must come from a corresponding simple impression. This principle is known as the copy principle. For example, a person born blind cannot form an ideas of color because they never had the impression of the seeing color. Similarly, someone who has never tasted sweetness cannot truly imagine it. Hume believed this principle could expose meaningless philosophical concepts. Whenever philosophers use abstract terms such as substance, essence, or absolute reality, Hume asks a simple question: from which impression does these ideas arise? If no impression can be found, then the ideas is meaningless. However, the mind is not entirely passive. It can combine, separate, enlarge, or diminish ideas. A golden mountain, for instance, is formed by combining the idea of gold with the idea of mountain. Even imagination works only with material originally provided by experience. Hume also explained how ideas become connected through association. He defined three principles of association: resemblance, contiguity in the time and place, cause and effect. This association organizes human thinking and allows the mind to move naturally from one idea to another. Thus, Hume's theory of impression and ideas established the foundation of his empiricism and became the basis for his critique of metaphysics and knowledge. Hume next distinguished between two kinds of knowledge: relation of ideas and matter of fact. Relation of ideas are truth discovered purely through thinking. These include mathematics, geometry, and logic. Statements such as 2 plus 2 equal to 4 or a triangle has three sides are necessarily true. Their denial leads to contradiction. Matter of fact are different. They concern the actual world and depend entirely upon experience. Statements such as the sun will rise tomorrow or the fire burns wood are not logically necessary. Their opposite are always possible. For instance, there is no contradiction in imagination that the sun may not rise tomorrow. It may seem unlikely, but it is not logically impossible. This distinction becomes extremely important because Hume argued that all scientific knowledge belongs to the matter of fact. Science depends upon observation and experience, not logically necessary. But if matter of fact are not certain, then how can science claim universal law? This question leads Hume into his famous analysis of induction and causality. Induction and causality. One of Hume's greatest contributions to philosophy is his critique of induction. Induction is the process of drawing general conclusions from repeated observation. For example, we observe the sun rising every day and conclude that it will rise tomorrow. We observe fire producing heat and conclude that fire always burns. Science itself depends heavily upon induction. But Hume asks a devastating question. What justifies this assumption that the future will resemble the past? No logical proof exists. Suppose someone say the future will resemble the past because it always has in the past. Hume points out that this argument always assumes what is tried to prove. This is a circular reasoning. According to Hume, our belief in causality does not arise from reason. When we repeatedly observe two events occurring together, such as fire followed by heat, the mind develops a habit of expecting one after the other. We never actually perceive necessary connection. We only observe constant conjunction. For example, when a billiard ball strikes another billiard ball, we see motion followed by another motion, but we do not perceive any invisible power forcing the second ball to move. Causation is therefore not rationally known, it is psychologically believed. Habit and custom produce our expectation about the world. This conclusion was revolutionary because it undermined certainty in science and metaphysics. Scientific laws become habit of expectation rather than logically necessary truth. Yet Hume did not reject science entirely. He simply saw that science rests on probability and practical belief rather than absolute certainty. The external world and the self. Hume's skepticism extends ever further. He questioned whether we can truly know the external world. Humans began naturally believed in objects existing independently outside the mind. We think tables, mountains, river, and trees continue to exist even when unperceived. But according to Hume, experience only gives us perception, color, sounds, texture, and sensation. We never directly perceive an external substance existing behind this impression. Belief in an external world is therefore not rationally proven. It is another natural habit of the imagination. Hume applied the same criticism to the self. Many philosophers believe the self is a permanent spiritual substance underlying all experience. But Hume asks, when I examine myself, what do I actually perceive? He finds only changing perception, sensation, emotion, memories, desire, thought, and feeling. He never encountered a permanent self beyond this experience. According to Hume, the self is merely a bundle or collection of perception, constantly changing through time. There is no fixed soul or enduring substance directly known through experience. This bundle theory became one of the most influential critiques of traditional notion of personal identity of the soul. Personal identity. If there is no permanent self, then why do we believe we are the same person over time? Hume argued that personal identity is created by memory and imagination. Memory connects past experience with present experience. Similarity and continuity make the mind imagine and stable identity where only changing perception exists. For example, a river appears identical over time, yet its water constantly changes. Similarly, the human mind changes continuously, but memory creates the illusion of unity. The belief in personal identity therefore arises from psychological association rather than metaphysical substance. This theory deeply influenced later philosophers and modern psychology. It also anticipates modern discussion about consciousness and identity. Hume's empiricism led him to reject much of traditional metaphysics. Metaphysics often discuss concepts such as substance, soul, absolute reality, or God beyond experience. But Hume insists that meaningful ideas must originate from impression. If no impression corresponds to a concept, then the concept lacks genuine meaning. For Hume, many metaphysical debates are merely dispute over empty words. He famously declared that books contain neither metaphysical reasoning nor experimental observation should be committed to the flame because they contain nothing but sophistry and illusion. This does not mean Hume rejected all philosophy. Rather, he wanted philosophy grounded in human experience and observation instead of speculative abstraction. His critique became enormously influential in later empiricism, positivism, and analytic philosophy. Hume's skepticism. Hume is often called a skeptic because he questioned certainty in knowledge. But his skepticism is moderate rather than extreme. He does not deny practical life. Human beings naturally believe in causation, the external world, and personal identity. Even philosophers cannot avoid this belief in everyday existence. What Hume denies is rational certainty. Reason cannot justify many assumptions human naturalists make. This creates a tension between philosophy and ordinary life. Philosophical reflection produces doubt, but daily life restores natural belief. Hume therefore concludes that human understanding is limited. We must accept probability instead of absolute certainty. His skepticism encourages intellectual humility. It reminds us that human knowledge has boundaries. Reason and the passion. One of Hume's most famous doctrines concerns the relationship between reason and emotion. Traditional philosophers often believe reason should rule human life. Hume disagrees. According to him, reason alone cannot motivate action. Reason only discovers fact and relation. It tells us what is true or false, but it cannot determine goals or values. Passion, desire, emotion, and sentiment actually move human being to act. Hume therefore declared, reason is the slave of passion. This means human behavior is fundamentally guided by feeling rather than pure logic. Even morality arises more from sentiment than from rational deduction. We approve virtues such as kindness and generosity because they produce feeling of approval and sympathy. Thus, morality is rooted in human nature and emotion rather than abstract rational principle. Hume emphasized on emotion profoundly influenced ethics, psychology, and modern theories of human behavior. Conclusion. David Hume transformed philosophy through his radical empiricism and skepticism. Beginning with impression and ideas, he analyzed the limits of human knowledge and challenged deeply rooted assumptions about causality, the self, the external world, and metaphysics. He saw that much of human belief rests not upon rational certainty, but upon habit, custom, imagination, and feeling. Yet Hume was not merely destructive. His philosophy opened new ways of understanding human psychology, science, morality, and knowledge itself. His influence extended to later thinkers such as Immanuel Kant, who famously admit that Hume awakened him for his dogmatic slumber. Even today, Hume remains one of the most powerful and relevant philosophers in the history of thought. A thinker who forced humanity to confront the limit of reason and the complexity of human nature. If you are still watching, I hope you are finding this content useful. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel and share your thought in the comment. Your support motivates me to create even more content like this.